Hey, what's going on? Should we take these off so we can see? All right, how are you? Let's look at some comic books. So there's this box. Let me pull it up real quick. There's this short box. So most everything is packed away, but there's this box that doesn't have a top. So it's like out and easy to get to. So it's randomly pull books out. I guess we'll start with a stack from the middle. It's random. I don't know what they're going to be. Let's look at them. I hope you're doing okay. I hope you're having a good day. Whoever you are, wherever you are, and whenever you are. This is a Woody Woodpecker comic book from the 1950s, I think. He's at a diner with this buzzard. This is Spike and Tyke, also from the 1950s. Um, this is about a divorced dad who is raising his kid in the mid 1950s. They live outside in a yard and their dogs. This is Funny Animals. Fawcett's Funny Animals. Kind of the same premise here. This is a divorced chicken. He's a divorced rooster, and he has custody of this chick. And it's the weekend. It's visitation. The chick came over, and he's staying at his dad's apartment, and they're cooking breakfast. Very relatable situation. This is Our Army at War. This isn't a real comic. This is one of those facsimile versions. It's a new one. I got this from Gotham City Comics in Mesa, Arizona. That's my local comic shop. It can be yours too. It's only a phone call away. You could call Kevin there at Gotham City Comics, and he could help you over the phone put together a purchase. This is Andy Panda. This is a comic book about a panda bear. He has this friend named Charlie the Chicken. They have misadventures. Various misadventures. Here's Tweety and Sylvester. I'm starting to put together a theme here. I think that we're seeing a lot of food related comic covers because these are food related comic covers. So Sylvester, this is a great idea, a great scheme. What has happened here? The only problem with it is that I mean, is his tail burnt? I think his tail is his tail burnt? I feel like he should be cooked. I feel like that Tweety should be cooked. I don't understand how he survived the toaster. I feel like the idea is that he popped Tweety down into the toaster, and then when Tweety popped up, he slapped him together like a sandwich. But it didn't really happen. I feel like he should be all like covered in third-degree burns. Maybe he should just be, yeah, he should be burnt. This is Walter Lance's New Funnies. So you have Woody he's like a server, a waiter for these two back here. That's Oswald the Rabbit and Andy Panda there. And it looks like he's pouring them 2 cups of piss and he's splitting the stream. Also a super relatable cover. Everybody is here. Tono and Kono, the Jungle Twins. I feel like there's only one way to tell the difference between these twins, and I think one of them wears a necklace and the other one doesn't. It's been a long time since I've read a Jungle Twins comic book, but these Jungle Twins comics that I have like 2 or 3 or 4 of them. Anyway, these were bought for me by my mother in the early 70s because she knew that I liked Tarzan. It's not Tarzan, but I didn't tell her that. Even as a little kid, I wasn't rude about that. I said, thanks, Mom. These are cool. I've never read these before. And I ended up liking them. This is, what is this guy's name? Starhawk? This is the original, maybe not the original, maybe this is the second incarnation of the Guardians of the Galaxy. Marvel Presents #3. This guy's name was Charlie, what was his name? Charlie X? Charlie 27? Charlie Callis? I don't know. You don't see enough Charlie Callis anymore, do you? Got any Charlie Callis fans out there? Here's the Eternals. This is a terrible comic book and a terrible era for comic books created by Jack Kirby. There were several comic books that were substandard that were created by Jack Kirby in the early 70s for both major imprints, for both DC and Marvel. He was making these comics that were virtually unreadable. Now the art on the inside is great, and maybe the concept you might think, oh, it's kind of good, but it's hard. He can't even put together a 2-issue story, or I mean, definitely not a 3-issue story arc, or like some kind of a long story arc, like with Commandy. It was terrible. It's an awful comic book. It's poorly written. You can, even at 12 years old, I couldn't make it through an issue without being bored and tired of it. I just looked at the pictures, because Jack Kirby was a good artist, but he couldn't draw his way out of a barn door. Here is the Funky Phantom. Now, I liked this cartoon. I remember when this came out. Now, I'm not sure of the year. I feel like it was around the bicentennial, 1976, because I feel like that was part of why it's the Funky Phantom, because I think he's like supposed to be from the Revolutionary War. But I liked it. I remember when this probably debuted on Saturday morning, and September 2nd or something in 1975, or maybe 1974, or maybe 1976. But I enjoyed it. The Funky Phantom. Here's Not Brand Ek. This is a giant size Not Brand Ek. This is a really fun comic book. I liked this when I was a kid, when I discovered it. It's parodies of Marvel superheroes. The Illustrated Story of Dogs. Oh, The Punisher. Wow, this is like a new comic made like 20 years ago. So if I have something that's 20 years old, to me this is it's new. You can see why, because everything else we looked at wasn't new. Here is a Winnie the Pooh comic from Whitman. This also came from my mother. She gave me this. Here is Donald Duck Adventures. You used to be able to find these in dollar bins in the 90s. That's why I have them. I only bought a couple of these new off the stands, maybe 1 or 2 of them, I think. The other ones that I have, I bought from dollar bins in the early 90s or mid 90s. This is an era of Marvel Comics that I really couldn't stand these advertisements that they were putting at the top here. There was like this contest to win a bike, a Schwinn 10-speed or something. I felt like it was going on for 2 years. I got so tired of these stupid things at the top. It looks ugly. It still looks ugly to this day. Not that this is a great cover. This is just a good era. This is the opposite of those Jack Kirby 1970s comics. This is a comic created by one creator, pretty much, John Byrne, but he could actually write stories. He actually wrote good stories that were derivative of Stan Lee's original stories. I would, I like John Byrne, and after John Byrne, uh, I would say came Mike Allred, who had the ability to do the same thing, where he could write and draw and emulate or uh, derive his work from the original material, the source material, instead of I don't know, making it shitty. Just my opinion, but it's pretty rock solid. If you don't agree, you're stupid. Um, Here is Man Thing. Beautiful artwork. I have had this since about fourth grade, fifth grade. This used to be my friend Garth's comic book, but he gave it to me. He gave me his comics quite frequently. He was like a kid that would, like, if he didn't give them to me, they would have been thrown away. Maybe, I don't know, something like that. He didn't want them, and he knew that I collect them, so he gave them to me. After they had been read and he had owned them for years, then he would, oh, here, have this, you can have this. Or I'd reading it, and he'd say, just take it. I bought this at Safeway, Pollock Pines, California, whenever this came out. 5th grade, 6th grade, something. This was the first time that I had read a story with Hercules in it. It was the first time that I saw like this crossover between the Norse mythology and the Greek mythology. Very good comic book. I recommend it. Here's Quack, another good comic book that I recommend. Here's a Jerry Lewis comic book. I wish there were more Jerry Lewis comic books. I wish that that something more came of this. Like, I would have liked to have seen more Jerry Lewis adventures that were like his movies, or even adaptations of his movies, or even telethon comic books. I would like to see comic books that were Jerry Lewis oriented, that had to do with his later career. The Dean Martin feud, the what do they call it? The telethon. I would like to see the telethon, Jerry the Telethon comic. Inferior 5. This is a parody comic book similar to that other one we looked at earlier, Not Brand X, except it's not as good, but it's still good. It's still worthwhile, and you should pick it up. What is this? Here's a new Hulk comic. It's probably 30 years old, but to me, this is a new Hulk comic. This is when the new Hulk was sometimes readable. I mean, this art is good. I think this is that guy Dale Keown, and he was okay, I think. Maybe this is him. I don't remember. But anyway, it sucked. It really sucked. The story sucked. It was weak. Some of the art was okay. Here's something shitty. I don't even know what this is. Must have come out of a dollar bin. It's kind of a cool cover. Here's something good. It's Swamp Thing. This was neat. They made these like these compilations of reprints in the 70s. In case you were like me and you missed the original Swamp Thing. What is that? Appears that Tim Pool has just put up a new video. Swamp Thing is really good. Again, it's the thing about comic books is comic books are a combination of art and story, and what happens when you put it together is you have a visual storytelling medium. Now, if there's no cohesion between the stories and the art, or if the art itself is poor, or if the writing itself is poor, then you get a poor product. Not everything from the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s is good. I just happen to prefer that stuff. But there is good and bad in there. Not all of it is good. And not even all of the artists that people claim to be good or people like, not even that is good. So, because everybody has varied taste when it comes to these things, to art. Isn't that what this is? This is an artistic medium. So, like, for example, there's a lot of people that like certain comics I don't like. Like I mentioned Commandy earlier. Look at this piece of shit. I mentioned Commandy earlier. Let's talk about George Perez. So George Perez was this artist. He really seemed like a nice guy, right? Like you can see lots of interviews with him and stuff. He wore a Hawaiian Tommy Bahama shirt all the time, I think. He was very nice at the conventions and things like that. Uh, People really like his art. A lot of those people that are into that shitty Teen Titans comic from the 80s that people think is good, that is really not good. The art of this guy, this George Perez guy, does nothing for me. It's busy. It's overworked. It's too tight. So here's what you can say. You could use a couple terms to refer to comic book artists as loose and tight. So tight is somebody who overworks. It's a try-hard. It's somebody who draws too much, right? It's too complicated. The panels are filled with too much shit. That's George Perez. In addition, I look at George Perez as an action figure artist. The reason why I say that he's an action figure artist is that most of the characters, the figures that he draws, appear to be drawn from a template of some sort, where he draws everyone the same, and then the only changes are the colors of the uniforms, and the uniforms or costume designs. Otherwise, every female looks like every other female, every male looks like every other male, with the exception of the uniforms or the costumes that they're wearing. And then he puts like 15 people in one panel, and they're all drawn the same, and they're all on top of each other and in the way of each other, and he's a tryhard. It makes me feel sick to my stomach when I look at it. Because I appreciate art. Look at this beautiful piece of work. This is a great comic book. This is another one of those comics that came from Garth. We read this many, many times. Sleepovers and hanging out and just making models or whatever, or chilling out in each other's rooms. So this came from his house. I read it over and over and over again, and he gave it to me. He also gave me Tomb of Dracula #1 with some model paint overspray on the cover, because a lot of his comics would just be on his desk where he would build airplane models. This is a piece of shit. Look at this crap. I need to do a culling. I should go through and get rid of this stuff. Look at this. Look at the contrast. So look at this mass-produced, trite piece of crap that's barely readable. Although the art is okay. It's okay. But inside here, it's just a soap opera, a weak, boring soap opera. Stuff that we've already read over and over again. Nothing new, nothing cool. Certainly nothing like this. Look at this. Cricket. I should be taking these out of the bags for you and flipping through them, right? I complain about other people not doing that all the time. I hate other people's comic book shows where all they do is show comic books like what I've been doing. But a lot of the times they don't even do what I've been doing. They just hold up the cover and they say where they got. Sometimes I don't even say where they got it. They just hold it up, right? Like look at this squirrel tail that I have, right? And then they'll be look at this pair of shoes that I found. It's like I don't know what it is. It's like I'm not sure. Anyway, this is a Daredevil comic from the 1950s. On the inside are delightful stories, really good stories, written by Charles Biro. Here's another one. This is an odd comic book, Daredevil. It really is an odd comic book. You know, this started out as being an actual comic book with a superhero in it, a guy named Daredevil. Sometimes he's on the cover, he's not here. Sometimes he'll be like standing next to the boys. Then for some reason, probably having to do with the Comic Codes Authority in the mid-50s, they decided to make this entire comic about this group of 4 little boys called the Little Wise Guys that are like little troublemakers, but at the same time, they're little heroes, and every single story has a deep moral meaning and tons of writing. What I mean by a deep moral meaning is it's always about bettering yourself as a citizen and as an American. The stories will be about things like stealing or lying or cheating. They're all adventure. They're exciting and fun. And you have to be able to read to enjoy them, which a lot of people, they don't like to read. In some cases, that's why they collect comic books, because they don't actually read real books. They just read comic books. Which is what Stan Lee was catering to at the beginning, in a way. We're coming close to the end of our video, but I'll wrap it up with that. So one of the things that Stan Lee was doing, it wasn't just Stan, Roy Thomas was doing it too, was bringing literature into Marvel Comics. Something that DC really didn't do it, but Marvel did it all the time. Like things like educational stuff mixed in with the comic books, like Thor or like Spider-Man. There were things that were different about those comic books, or Fantastic Four. There were things that were different about the writing that was in there. It was definitely geared towards kids, and Stan was trying to educate and bring references, like so often the titles of the stories in Marvel Comics in that era. What are we at? 21 minutes. Would have titles that were like puns that had to do with like Shakespearean plays, or moments in history, or fine films, or Greek tragedies. It's all there, as well as obviously mythology and stuff. So in many cases, a lot of you watching this video, you learned everything you know about Norse or Greek mythology from Marvel Comics. Or maybe you've read nothing but Classics Illustrated. You've never actually read, I don't know what Red Badge of Courage. You haven't read Red Badge of Courage, but you've read the Classics Illustrated version. These are the morons that collect comic books. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. We're looking at comic books from all different eras from a box that didn't have a lid. Hope you have a fantastic day or evening. Thanks for watching. Happy tracing, everyone.